Yeah, man. I love that chord. Hey, everybody. This is Jimi Bell, and I am your host of another episode of Beyond the Strings right here at RHCTV Studios. And, man, I am so excited today. I have a long time friend here, bandmate, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Nomad. Mark, how are you, my dear friend?
Very well, Jimmy.
Oh, man, there's so much we need to talk about.
Absolutely.
And I actually rented a room down the street for you to stay so you can come back and do another segment.
Oh, thank you.
Nothing but the best for you.
Oh, my goodness.
So, Mark, I'm going to start at the very beginning with Little Village. And I'll tell you why I want to start there, because Little Village, as a youth, me growing up as a young guitar player, that band was a huge influence in my life, as it was for many guitar players and many other people. I mean, the band was absolutely one of the best bands around, and you had the support of not only so many people, but Barry Grant, who was at WDRC at the time.
Yes.
Such a huge fan of the band, really did a lot for you guys. That's very unheard of with DJs, taking on a local band and really pushing them like that. And I got to tell you, on my 18th birthday, so I already knew all about Little Village, and me and my buddy Frank. You remember Frankie Village?
Right, but your dad used to bring you before you were legal.
Oh, yeah. My dad brought me to see you guys a couple times.
A couple times at Brandy's.
Yeah, oh, my God, Brandy's in Newington.
Then when you were legal, you came with Frank, right?
Yeah, on my 18th birthday, and I felt so proud going through that door, showing my license. Look, I can legally come in here now, and see Little Village. But, there was nothing like it. The chemistry that you and Johnny had. I mean, the whole band had such charisma, but you and Johnny as a guitar team were magic. And it wasn't that any one guy was better than the other. It was the two of you together made such history together.
Well, I coming from you, that means a lot to me. And of course, John was a prodigy. I mean, he was a great guy, very complex guy. I met him in 1965.
I was just going to ask you, why don't you tell us the beginning?
High School. Yeah. So, and we were in competing bands in the 60s, at South Windsor High School. He was in a band called the Cavaliers, and there were some great guys in that band. I mean, Chris Anderson, who has been a great recording engineer.
Yeah.
And he played keyboard in that band and sang, and Johnny played lead guitar. Tracy Sherman, who was the first drummer for Little Village, was in the Cavaliers, and my band was called the Big Sound. We were only together for half as long as the Cavaliers, but we competed. So I remember going to a school dance, and they're playing that song "Over, Under, Sideways, Down" by the Yardbirds.
Oh.
I don't know if Jeff Beck was doing this, and John was playing those riffs like effortlessly, and I'm going, I could never play that, And I mention that because John was just this seamless, natural player. He was so. He
had a gift.
He had a gift.
There was something very unique about him. Something even with his voice. He had a very unique singing voice.
He was a charismatic individual, to say the least. He was larger than life. And, after high school, we lost touch a little bit because, I went to college. I had a full scholarship, to UConn. And after 5 semesters, I quit. I had met Duane Allman, and I was an Allman Brothers Band fan, literally sat at his feet. And so I had a cool band in college, but then that, broke up. And so I went back to South Windsor after I quit school. My parents were heartbroken because, but Johnny and I, reconnected. And we started jamming all the time in his kitchen with his dad, Herbie, who was a great guy.
Loved Herbie.
And we got our Les Pauls cranking through these super reverbs loud, and Herbie's loving it. And then, Johnny said, if you ever need a place to live. And it was getting a little tough at my parents' house. I had a kid brother I was sharing a room with, so I just said, hey, did you mean it? And he goes, yeah, come on over. And I moved in with Johnny and Herbie.
Wow.
And so then we auditioned so many rhythm sections, and we couldn't find, kindred spirits. And then meanwhile, I heard the original Little Village song by Sonny Boy Williamson. I can't tell you the lyrics because they're famous. He gets stopped in the middle of a great take, and he swears at the producer. And I played that for Johnny, and I said, what do you think? Little Village for the name of the band? He goes, absolutely. Now, we were the original Little Village. There were, there was the famous one with Ry Cooder and John Hyatt, Nick Lowe.
It's funny, you told me that at the restaurant, but I never even heard of I don't know that one.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when they first started, Al Anderson, who we had done so many shows with NRBQ, and I go back to seeing him in the Wild Weeds. They were a fabulous band.
Great.
And Al said, hey, where did you get that name? And I said, the same place they got it, from the Sonny Boy Williamson record. But we didn't copyright it, sadly. But at any rate, that band and being with John, having to even, I didn't try to keep up with him. I just tried to... keep it going,
Well, it's, I don't know. I mean, obviously you guys came up with an amazing chemistry. You figured out a formula. And
we didn't even know.
Yeah, well, when you're working with another guitar player, like I had the same luxury of working with, like when I was with Diamondback, I like the other guitar player, Paul Lusky. He doesn't play anything the way I played. We were opposites. He was more of a regular rock player, and I had a lot of the fast stuff. And for some reason, it worked amazingly. It was the best thing.
It's balance.
Yeah. If I had been in a project with another guitar player, it's all into it would have been too much, and it would have been that little thing going back and forth. But you guys had magic, and so I wanted to ask you, how many members did you go through Little Village?
Just the original rhythm section were from South Windsor, and then after a couple of years, we got another rhythm section, and
is that when Bernie came in?
Yeah, Bernie came in. Yeah, so Tracy Sherman and Ron Dayton were the original rhythm section, and then we brought in Bernie and Mark Couture. And the band, changed. And it got a little bit. The first band was more bluesy and rock and rolly, and then the second band got more into rock and funk and stuff. And Barry was kind of our unofficial manager, and he kind of made that happen.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of things for us. He I remember we went to the record plant in New York City, and to do a demo, a spec demo, and. We were taking a break, and Chaz Chandler, who was the bass player for the Animals, had been. Now he discovered Hendrix and produced Hendrix.
Of course.
And Studio B, where we were, was Hendrix and John Lennon's favorite studio. It was so cozy. So we step out into the hallway, and there comes Chaz Chandler walking down the hall with Slade. Remember that band? Slade?
Yeah. They did. Come on, feel the noise. Yeah.
He's about 6'6", and they were all under 5'5". It was kind of comical. It was like a Jolly Green Giant, and But I got to shake his hand, and so one of the tunes, because I was the main songwriter in the group.
Oh, okay.
And
that was one of my questions.
Yeah,
who did a lot of the writing?
I wrote most of it. But Barry liked the song Stateside Morals that I wrote that Johnny sang, and his solo on this cut was so amazing. And Barry had moved to WPLR in New Haven, and he's playing the demo every day on his show. So it goes into Long Island. And we became the #1 band in a poll on Long Island. We beat out Twisted Sister and Good Rats.
Really?
They hadn't had records yet. And then we finally came out with a record on the small label.
Yeah, on with Dave Pike, right? The Quiet Cannon thing.
But we were a visual too. I mean, Johnny had the Viking blonde hair, and I had the big afro.
Yeah,
you know, and it was we were
It was a great band. I want to know. I mean, me being a guitar player, I watched everything. I was into the whole what you were playing for guitars. I always liked the tone that Johnny got out of that 335.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just absolutely amazing. So what I want to do is we're going to hit on that. I want to talk about your amplifiers, how you did the Marshall and the Super Reverb. And we're going to take a quick break for a commercial, and we will be right back. Hey everybody, welcome to this quick little segment here called Inside the Gig Bag. And I'm still honored to have my longtime friend Mark Malucci here. And we're going to just do a quick explanation of a very typical 1-4-5 progression. So what, if some of you don't know what that is, most all rock and roll, most blues, everything is formed off of 1-4-5, right down to your old Chuck Berry type of. So basically, what we have is the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. So a lot of times, we have a lot of variations off of that. So instead of just playing, we're into sevenths. So why don't you tell us some of the different type voicings that you really like?
Well, one thing we were talking earlier, because we know so many people that have touched us both, and we were talking about Philip Henry,
right? Oh yeah,
who's a master player, luthier, and a teacher. And I learned when I studied for a little while with Frock that the reason why, a lot of country stuff, if you're playing major chords, you want to stay with major pentatonic, major scales. If you're playing a minor chord, you want to play minor scales. But the magical thing about a 7th and a 9th chord, which is so predominant in what we were just doing, is that the flat 7 creates a tension, not a tension,
right?
Tension.
Like,
so what you can do is you can do both.
Exactly.
You can play major and minor. And one of my favorite blues guitar players of all time, Albert Collins, he actually could start a phrase major and end up minor in the same phrase, playing major and minor.
I do it all the time in country. Like I'll go, whoops, sorry about that. I'll go. That flat 5th. So yeah, the combining of the two, because you're using 7th and 9 chords, works perfectly for that. So a lot of times in a nice progression, like also what is nice is to do inside voicings. So like then. Like you have little, like broken voices of chords.
Yeah.
So, but what I also like is the 2 chord. Like a lot of times in country, they'll go up to the 5.
Well, have you? It's on this record. Have you heard my song, "The Frizz"?
No, that's the reason I wanted to get it.
The reason I mentioned is I wrote a song as a tribute to John Frizzell, and I call it "The Frizz." And the riff is
oh, you played it.
But it goes to the. So instead of going to the 5 chord, it goes to the 2 there.
Yeah.
That's what you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You played that at your show.
Yeah, I quote a lot of his stuff, and he taught me that thing where I do.
Beautiful.
He taught me so many things, and I don't even know how he learned all this stuff. He was a prodigy. But anyway.
But yeah, so just so you know that your typical rock and roll songs. A lot of them come off of a 1-4-5 progression. And if you want to get a little fancy, you add the 2-chord in. So that would be. That's your little lesson from the gig bag. We'll see you again. Mark, welcome back, buddy. Thank you so much for being here.
It's so great to see you.
Yeah, it really is. So many years. Lots of great stories. I wish we had like 50 out because we would need like 4 days to talk about everything. But I do want to get right into your amplifiers.
Yes.
Because that was one of the things that when I did come out to see you with Little Village, I was really impressed. You had a half stack of Marshall and a Super Reverb, blackface, I believe. Was it a blackface?
Oh,
Super
yeah.
Reverb?
I still have it.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah. Hasn't left the studio for years. No, those things. I thought wood got lighter when it aged. 76 pounds. No, it's too big. Plus, everything's lower volume these days. I use a 22-watt amp. The other gig that I did at the Flying Monkey last Sunday had it on 22 watts. But to rewind a little bit, so Johnny and I both bought Super Reverbs about the same month, unknowingly, in the summer of '67.
That's
and
crazy.
then we both bought Les Pauls around the same month in 1971. And so that, we had lost a little touch then. And so we found out that we were playing the same type of stuff. And then that was really affirmation.
Yeah.
And so we started playing. But after the first little while of Little Village, I wanted to get a Marshall because Dwayne Allman and Dickie Betts had them. I saw Hendrix at the Bushnell in '68.
I can't believe that. I am so jealous. I was 10 years old. I actually could have went to the Bushnell to see Hendrix. I could have asked my dad to bring me there. That would have been great.
Would have.
Yeah, he would have.
He brought you to Brandy's to see
us.
He did.
He brought me to a bar. He would have brought me to the Bushnell.
So after a while, we wanted to get Marshall. So we took loans out.
Yeah.
And we each bought 2 50-watt heads and 2 412 cabinets. But after a few years, we had the second 50-watt head and cabinet as a spare, and we didn't need them as spares. So we both sold our Marshalls, and we both got different guitars. John, I think might have been when John got his 335, and I got my Martin D35, and then we decided to put the Super Reverb on top of the 4-speaker cabinet, the half stack, and then the head on top of that. You're standing and you had to go like this to change.
Great sound. What did you just run? Combine the two of them together? How did you?
Yeah, just straight through.
And did you have? Were you using any pedals? I thought you used the Distortion Plus. I could be wrong.
I didn't. I added that later.
Later on?
Well, you know what? Later Village I did because then I switched to a Strat. I got my '57 Stratocaster.
Those are more of my memories of Little Village when I saw you with a Strat. I used to see you a real lot with that. And, we could go on and talk about that, but I want to talk about also your unique talent that you have on the guitar, because you're not just a great guitar player, but you're a great slide player, and that comes from the Dwayne Allman influence.
Yes.
Would you mind just playing? You got your slide right here. I'd love for you to do just a little bit of slide thing for me.
Well, when I first started playing slide, the open tuning is the way to play because it's very forgiving, and you slide up and you can play all 6 strings.
I could play a little bit of slide in open tuning, so that if that tells you anything.
But so Dwayne played pretty much exclusively when I saw him in open E, and I had been dabbling with it prior to seeing him. I first saw him in 1970, and then I just said I got to do open E, and so I kind of learned that way. But I also had this love for Delta blues,
right?
And because I do a solo thing as well,
right?
And Muddy Waters and Robert Johnson and cats like that, they often played an open G, and so I play in those 2 tunings. But then I finally said I got to learn how to play in standard tuning.
Right.
And essentially, that famous
Yep.
A chord there,
Yep.
that's your major triad.
Right.
So if I'm an E,
Beautiful.
so
What a sound, though. Now, I got to tell you, I do some sliding, and I notice you're using steel. So I prefer a glass.
I mix it up.
Oh, you
On
do?
the same gig, I mix it up. I've gone lighter now with my strings.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
What are you using?
9.5 on the high E string now.
That's not so light. I'm still using 10s, but
my hands. We were talking about
well, look at being with you today is the first time I've tuned my guitar up to A440 in a long time.
I bet you're feeling it.
Yeah, I mean, just to pull something 10 gauge all the way up to standard pitch. It's a little.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Billy Gibbons is down to 8 or 7.
He's been using 8s or 7s for a long time.
No, 9.5. I still get enough meat for slide and tone, but it's just eases up on the tension. But the slide sound. My open tuning guitars, I use higher. Bigger gauges.
Oh, you do?
But
because you don't have to worry about doing any bends.
Right. But again, watching Dwayne playing in open E, and I had been dabbling with slide, and as it turned out, I was using a glass medicine bottle, like a Corsini bottle, and I used to play it on my third finger, like he did. But then it would condense. Because the third finger, that's a deep bend finger, and it would soften the callus, the sweat in there.
Because it was solid at the base.
Right, it wasn't an open.
It wasn't
top.
hollow.
Yeah, but then I realized I also, if I made myself learn how to play it on the fourth finger, because then I got 3 fingers that are free, and I can play chords and leads. Now, the people that use it on their third finger or middle finger even, you're very limited. You're stuck with the slide pretty much. You can play around it, but So I made myself do the fourth finger.
This?
Yeah, the pinky.
That's what I use it on mine. I even have all my slides. I put a little bit of tape or something to fill it a little better, and I like the fact that I could go I'll be able to go, so I can and then have these 2 fingers accessible for me to do some things.
Yeah, because you're doing it on the pinky.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, so you got 3 fingers to do that. So, but I had so then I got a steel slide because the Corsini bottle now was way too big for my pinky. So I got a steel slide, but then when I'm using a little bit higher gauge strings. And the actions, because slide likes high action. You ever see a pedal steel player?
You gotta have
actions,
high action.
So
you switch guitars. You
although I can play slide, I like a little higher action anyway, so I can bend.
Right.
But I use the glass on the open tuning guitar. So when you saw me with that SG Les Paul, I was playing glass on that. And glass is a little bit mellower sound.
Yeah, it is. It's got it. Yeah, it's not so brittle.
Yeah.
So let's jump ahead, and I don't know if you like to talk about it, but what led to the demise of Little Village?
Well, yeah, it's that was a very interesting chapter.
That it became very important. You became an important part of my life shortly after that. So that's why I want to talk about that.
That's right. If that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be nearly as close. And Little Village. Looking back, if I knew then what I know now, I might have done things differently.
Yeah, we all would.
But Little Village was a pretty intense band, and it was heavy partying.
Yeah.
Playing almost every night, and I started going through a little bit of a shift, spiritually.
Yeah.
And I
remember that.
Yeah, and I just felt like, this isn't really working for me anymore. And so I wanted to try, and again, as a songwriter, because I do want to inject this. Well, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. But as a songwriter, I was starting to write a little bit more positive songs.
Yes.
You know, I mean, Johnny and Mark wrote, contributed a song. I get a kick out of it on the Little Village album. You show me yours and I'll show you mine, And that's cool. It's funny. But that was kind of sometimes where the band was.
Right.
And I wanted to kind of
Well, you always been a great writer. You have a catalog, a countless catalog of material. I was at your last show at the Shabu, and I remember talking to you there as you came through the audience. That was an incredible night. But moving ahead, I was also at your very opening night at the Brave Bull for Sparky.
Wow.
And I remember you guys walking out on stage. You've got a great crowd in there. Bernie, and I believe it was my first time actually seeing Billy Dess play. And Billy was a force all himself.
He was a very talented cat.
You came out doing such a really cool thing as a power rock trio, which was something that really I took to right away. I love the fact that you were a trio. And I love how you and Billy sang, and Billy had
he's a great singer.
He had this very powerful, raspy kind of, voice. And I remember him doing, when he did a bass solo, he did a bass solo with like a fuzz box going on, and it was like monstrous.
And he was in that band Sunny Slope,
with Ray
and Mike Solak
and Richie Catalano.
So, and we had done like maybe one show at Brandy's with both bands. So we really respected, each other, and Billy was an important part of Sparky. But what happened was that people were expecting a little more boogie, and so we needed to some of my material, I just felt like I gotta rock a little bit more, and then we decided we needed a big change. And this is where you come in. We wanted to
big change.
The big change.
Hey, there we are, right there.
Look at that. We wanted to add a fourth guy.
Man, what a handsome bunch we were.
Oh boy, yeah.
Wow, look at that.
And so it just, I had seen you. You were playing. I'm trying to think.
Knight Rider,
and
with the Terrios.
The Terrio brothers.
Yeah.
Nice family.
Wonderful.
South Windsor family.
Yeah,
very
wonderful.
Nice people.
All talented. Joe, Paul, Elise,
all talented.
Yeah.
And but I
remember. So this is my this is the best story. I remember coming to see you at. It was called, I believe at the time, it was the Agora Ballroom, but it was maybe Stage West at the time.
Oh, yeah, because I played 5 names it had.
Yeah, Hard Rock Cafe, Stage West. So I come to see you, and I come up to say hi to you, and you were so excited that I was in the audience. You said, I forgot what you had said exactly, but you were making it sound like you put out energy, some kind of energy for me to show up or something. You were hoping that it would be. That I would be there, and you asked me about coming and getting together and doing something. Now, I want you to know the fact that I idolized, as a guitar player, a young guitar player, Little Village, you, Johnny, and everything. You asking me to join Sparky was like Led Zeppelin asking me to join Led Zeppelin. I mean, that's what it felt like. I was going to the next level of stuff. And man, when I got in the band, we really
you brought it, man.
We had some great things.
Holy
we
crap.
worked together good, even though my style was I was still young, I was a little more wild still. Like I was still developing all my speed style and everything, but you never really said anything. You let me just go and be what I was, and you were fine with that. You never said, why don't you do this or something. You just
No, you had this gift. I did say, I remember one night we finished a gig, and it may have been at the Brave Bull, and I said, you know what? I mean, if we were gunslingers, you get 6 shots off to my 1. You played more notes in, a song than sometimes I did in a night, But it was a good balance. That balance thing, again, is very, very important. And you brought a young energy, and we started doing more cover stuff because we hooked up with an agent who started booking us all over the place. But you did Eruption by Van Halen.
Right as it came out.
Right,
I remember we were playing.
We were playing it almost. Some of the
We
people
were
heard
playing at
us
the-
first.
we were playing at the back door in New London.
Oh my gosh!
And Eruption, Van Halen 1 had just come out, and when I heard it, I heard this part go. I said, "There's no way that he's doing that picking." I said, and Rick Derringer had showed me how to go.
Oh yeah,
Like that.
Yeah.
So I said, he's got to be doing something with his other hand. So I figured it out. I learned just that one part. And he used to let me do a guitar solo a little bit, just on my own at the show. And I remember breaking into that Eruption, and I remember people lighting up lighters in the club and stuff. It was just
And then we went into "You Really Got Me" because
Yeah.
that was the progression of that
Yeah.
album. That first Van Halen album, my gosh, it was
Yeah.
so amazing. And so we're in Sparky, and I wanted to say I would call you in the morning, and you're playing your guitar. I'd call you at night, and you're playing your guitar. You were playing your guitar 8 to 12 hours a day.
Yeah, I still do.
And I know. I mean, you can't get like that if you don't do that. And I remember, like in the 70s when I was in Little Village, I subscribed to Guitar Player magazine. And this guy Jerry Hahn, who was a jazz player, he had a column, and I want to learn some stuff. And I start songs would be coming through my head, and so I would practice and play, but I've always had to follow the songs that were coming through.
You got to do that. Like I know every time, like with House of Lords, every time an album is due, my whole body shifts into songwriting mode. It's like I could practice and practice and practice, and then all of a sudden, when I know an album is getting ready and I have to start prepping songs, it just shifts. My mind is going, and I'll be sitting, sometimes practicing, just doing my normal routine that I do, and all of a sudden a riff will come, and then I take my phone. Now it has, and I put my phone right down by my amplifier and record it right away because I've had things go in and out of my head within seconds if I don't get it down,
Well, especially at our age now.
Yeah.
The short-term memory is like you walk into a room. What did I come in here for?
But
50 years ago, you can remember things in vivid detail.
But I'll tell you, Sparky was a great band. I had a great time, and then all of a sudden, we got. Dave Pike put together Crier.
Right, and Billy decided he wanted to join that, and I was also going through what they call the dark night of soul. My marriage was dissolving, and when Billy was going to leave, I can't bear getting another bass player and going through this thing. Plus, again, the band was becoming a little bit more of a cover band, and less original. And so, sadly,
and that wasn't really your thing.
Sadly, well, I mean, I like covers, but as a songwriter, I want to do some of my songs, and we were doing some. But sadly, I felt bad. I felt bad for you because you put 4 months of your life into something, and that you didn't get much of a return. And I remember our last gig was at the Stage West or whatever it was called there. Then, like I say, I played at least 5 different names of that place. I have some stories. Holy crap!
Yeah, that place was wild.
It was amazing. But
I have one funny story I have to share, and I do remember this. We were playing a club. I believe it was in New York area someplace, and we were doing a blues number. You were singing a blues, nice quiet thing, and I had no idea that Billy triggered the flash pots. So I was, we were playing a blues number, and you were right up to the microphone. I stepped back on the switch and blew the flash pots right while you were singing. You don't remember that?
No.
Oh my God. I was just so happy I didn't singe your hair because you looked back at me and I'm looking around. I still didn't know what was going on. And Rob, the light guy, that he looked and goes, what? Because then he had to go and do the flash pots. I'll never forget it because I said it was like this nice, beautiful blues number. You're singing and I blew those flash pots.
That would be a great skit in another Spinal Tap, vignette, Yeah. Well, I felt really bad, but it was time for me. So you know what I did when Sparky broke up? I did my solo acoustic act for a year and a half, and because I had to get away from the whole band thing.
Right.
But it was good for me.
Is that when you developed the Mark Nomad thing?
That came a little later. I was
later.
still using my legal name,
Right.
Malucci, which I'm proud of. But when I
It's a
started
good name.
going into
It's a nice Italian name.
it's a nice name.
Yeah.
But when I went into the blues, really focusing on the blues in the mid '80s, then I wanted a name, and that's an interesting story too. But I just wanted to mention, so the solo acoustic thing, in 1979. I played 5 nights a week for the whole year, and these were all one-nighters.
Yeah.
And bringing in the little PA and stuff, and I did 256 solo gigs in
Amazing.
1979. And
I would have done it too if I had the voice. Honest, I would have. I would have. The money's too good. You're your own entity.
But it got a little lonely sometimes, and so then I had the opportunity. I did I did a recording with Hothead Slater. That was on this compilation, WHCN compilation, and ironically, Arizona Made Band had a song on there, and I joined Arizona Made Band.
I forgot all about
And
that.
I was in that band for 2.5 years.
Isn't that weird? Like you, Johnny joined Fountainhead. You joined Arizona Made.
I did that first, and then he joined Fountainhead, and then those two bands were very competitive. In a happy way.
Yeah.
It was Arizona Made Band was a very good band, and I played with the other guitar player was Victor Coles.
Yeah,
and he was in Foxfire before that.
Love
with
Foxfire.
Donnie Anderson
And what the bass player?
Oh yeah, Tom Sotaro.
Tommy Sotaro. What a voice, man.
Well, I asked him first in Sparky.
Oh, you did?
But it wasn't.
Oh my God,
him.
that guy. That guy.
Yeah, what a voice.
I mean, I heard he had some issues too, but boy, I'll tell you, he's great.
Super talented.
Well, listen, honest to God, I want to sit and talk to you about so many. Well, first off, before we have to wrap it up, how many albums, CDs, how many do you have out?
Okay.
And where can people go to listen to your music?
Okay. Well, like I said, in the 80s, I became Mark Nomad because I wanted a bluesy name.
Yep.
And I was in Chicago, and I was jamming with Jimmy Johnson band, and his guitar player let me play his Gold Top, and they wouldn't let me off the stage. So finally, we want to introduce you. What's your name? And I'm thinking, they're not going to get my name right, Malucci. So my son's name is Damon, and you met him when he was a baby. And you were, that's when I saw the soft side. You have a real loving heart. You were funny with him. So I reversed his name. Nomad.
Oh.
Damon, Nomad, Mark Nomad. In Chicago, that's when I became Mark Nomad. And so I've been doing that ever since. And I have 12 albums out. Fantastic. As Mark Nomad on my Blue Star label. And I did a single first. Remember the 45 RPMs? I did a single in '87, and since then I've done 12 albums.
Are your discs still available?
Yes, but people are not buying CDs. I call them archaic round things. I still play LPs, cassettes, and CDs. But
everybody's buying albums now. Everybody's back into buying.
But it's
vinyl.
so expensive to press vinyl. I was going to do it for my latest, but because there's a side 1 and a side 2 on my latest, and
Oh, really?
Which is
on this?
Yes,
that you gave me.
That I gave you.
I can't wait to go home and see this.
It's a compilation of my
Right
instrumental compositions, but there's a little blues on there, but not a lot of blues. But there are 2 live Little Village tracks that will blow your mind from 1976. Johnny he's at his prime. He's just playing. It's so incredible what he's doing. But anyway, I'm on all the streaming platforms.
Okay, good.
All of them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and my website is marknomad.com.
Okay.
And so that's another way to buy.
Yeah, because people need to hear you. Because I think you're great. I've always thought you were great.
Well, likewise, bro. But you know what?
We have other connections. We have.
God.
It's too bad we couldn't have got this in because you actually
let's get it in.
Okay, we'll talk about it real quick.
It's important.
This is important because Mark ended up becoming a rep for Roland Boss Products working for my Uncle Richie, and my Uncle Richie was one of the head reps for Roland and Boss. So we actually almost became family. Like, it was great because he worked for my uncle, and my uncle was a great man.
He was. And
But he showed you, he really brought you in.
He was an important mentor for me, and I got my first real job as an adult, in 1983, and so I get to go to music stores and hang out there and sell stuff, and I worked for him for 8 years. I loved him. And then I went back to my music for 6 years, and I know I broke his heart, but I had to go back to my music, and I did my music for 6 years, and then my baby, who's now 28, came along, and I had to get a real job again, and I got back in the industry, and I was...
you were Yamaha, weren't you?
Yamaha for 19 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good plan B for me, and I still put out records and played, but...
I think I'm the only musician in the world that never had a plan B. I don't know why that happened.
You didn't need one.
I talk to my wife about that every day. It's like, what happened? Everybody had all these expectations. It's great, but I just, I did good. I had opportunities that most people don't
It's a journey.
get.
When you think about it, it's a journey. And
I was
I'm so
telling,
grateful for my journey.
Yeah, when BJ was on last show, we were just talking how we devoted our whole life to doing nothing but music, and it's a tough life. If you're going to do that, you make sacrifices. You have to do things. It really is. But honest, Mark, this has been such a thrill. I mean, there's so much that we missed. But,
maybe we'll have to do a part 2 someday.
Yeah,
we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, we barely did. But I can't
thank
thank
you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been great to see you,
man. It's an honor, and wow.
Let's just do a quick little.
Yeah.
What key you want?
How about A?
A. Yeah, man. Love you so much. Thank you.
Likewise, man.
Take care, everybody. Good to see you.